Okay, we're ready and live. Hey, Kevin, how's it
Hey,
going?
it's going awesome. How are you?
Good. So, anyhow, Jessica Peterson, founder of Simply Wow Agency, a certified business life coach, also real estate agent, the luxury team brokered by eXp Realty. You are the one I have to thank for bringing eXp Realty in my life and blessing it. So, thank you, Kevin.
You're very welcome. We're glad to have you here.
And I'm glad to have you here as well, even though I know your internet went out. So, I'm grateful you found a spot. And we were just talking about your really cool art in the background. You don't know what it is, but anyhow, I like it.
I know that is a giant print and then part of a reflection of the outside, which is a nice sunny day here in Texas.
Woohoo! It's a nice sunny day, as you can see through my office window here out here in Florida. So I know we're going to do this live, totally unscripted. And you and I, all you know is that we spoke about top words that people type in and want to know about real estate. And you and I are both real estate coaches. And to have a conversation, you're brilliant, you're amazing. And it's a little bit entertaining, some of the questions. I know in 20 minutes or less, I want to go ahead and cover some of these questions. We might have to have another edition for just a couple questions because I don't believe we can cover it within 20 minutes or less. But you know
Sure.
what? If we could bust this out and just have a good time and share information, that would be great. You ready, Kevin?
I am ready.
Okay. So one of the top questions that came up on the very, very top is, are real estate agents rich? I thought, really? That is so fascinating. It's amazing how many people think they are rich. I know out here in Florida, stats show in my area, Southwest Florida, half the agents didn't even do one deal last year. So are they rich? Probably not in real estate, right?
Yeah. Well, this is, I think, a combination of a misperception that most of the public doesn't really understand how commissions are paid. In other words, if somebody were to list a house for sale and the industry, and there's no standard, it's always negotiated, but if the industry standard was 6% and it was $1 million property, right, they're thinking that there's a 6% of $1 million being paid, and in a lot of cases people think that the agents are keeping all that. And so if they start multiplying these numbers and they see people advertising in the real estate business and said, I did $10 million in sales, they multiply it by 6%, and they're like, wow, they made a lot of money.
Mhm.
And that's not how it works. So, the counter to that is exactly what you said, which is the probably 5% of the agents do the majority of the business.
Mhm.
So there are agents that make a great living in real estate, but if you look at it after expenses, after the reality of what it takes to run the business, they're certainly not making anywhere near what some of the public thinks they're making per transaction.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had conversations with some, we invest 60 grand a year in our marketing or even up to a million a year in our marketing. So like you said, it all comes to expenses. Okay. So I thought that was really, and what you're going to find fascinating is I'm just going down the list with you. It's a really, really common one. Are real estate agents self-employed? That's the next one.
Sure. Well, in all cases, unless they work for Redfin, they are in fact independent contractors. So it is a form of self-employment. In other words, unless you're on a real estate team where your team lead has got some standards for the team, you're still on the brokerage level an independent contractor. So just as clarification, there are a few brokerages where, like Redfin, requires that the agent be an employee and actually paid by W-2. So that's one of the outliers. Every other agent is holding a license in a state. The brokerage is a member of the state brokerage community, and they basically hang their license with them as an independent contractor. So they're not an employee; they're an independent contractor.
Yes. So when someone asks a real estate agent self-employed, majority are, not 100%. Like you said, depends on the company. So the next question, are real estate agents becoming obsolete? I'm hearing this one from a lot of people as well. So I'm not surprised to see this on the top searches. What would you say? Are real estate agents becoming obsolete? My answer is absolutely not. What would you say, Kevin?
I think you're going to see, there's no one answer to this, but there are certainly agents that are not providing a whole lot of service,
Mhm.
and sort of the old school model of without technology, almost like a travel agent type of thing, where they weren't doing a whole lot for
Mhm.
clients. They have the risk of becoming obsolete. And then, the biggest challenge is this, and this is very market specific. If you're in an area where you're a big metropolitan area where all the houses are the same. I mean, I could call out in Texas where I am, something like San Antonio or Dallas, Texas, where a ton of the houses, like they could be blocks of 10 to 20,000 houses, three builders, four models. and it's much easier for people to figure out what they're worth. And that's not the case. Like where you are near Siesta Key in Florida, it's very location specific. It's very specific to the home. And because it's such a big purchase, I think it's going to be a long time before an agent it becomes obsolete because of the value of the transaction, the specialization in terms of pricing. Doesn't matter if you're representing a buyer or a seller. It's a negotiated settlement in terms of the contract and the transaction. And you could have two houses side by side. You know, whether you're in St. Louis, Missouri, or Siesta Key, Florida, or Miami, or Boston, it's just not a homogeneous thing like a airline ticket. So because of that, I would agree with you. It's going to be a long time before an agent is obsolete. Now, they very well may make themselves personally obsolete if they don't adopt technology and have a real expertise in their market. So I think we may see a lot of agents leave the market over time because they're not really willing to step up with technology and market expertise.
Absolutely. And you had a really good analogy about the travel agency. There's still travel agents out there and they're thriving, succeeding, even though with the internet world. So there's always going to be a need or desire for real estate agents, especially probably more in the luxury market as well. So, okay, let's see here. Are real estate agents still needed? I would say yes. What would you say?
I would agree. There's going to be very few transactions. Now, in new construction, and I still think there's a need for an agent. You may see a lot more buyers be comfortable buying new construction like a condo tower or a housing subdivision where they know what they know, right? There's three models to choose from, and they're going to pick options and just have a house or a condo constructed. But in most cases, they're going to need an agent's expertise. One of the big, and then the counter to that is with new construction, people will end up over optioning new construction, and the builders are more than happy to roll that all into financing. And then this is where you see people get into trouble in the new construction world, where they go to resell, right? They get a job transfer and they look out and they go, God, we have 100,000 in options in this house, and the resell is 50,000 less than what they have in the house because they over improved it. And that's where an agent can provide some expertise in helping people go through the process, even with new construction. So I think it's true that in probably 99 out of 100 cases, most people will be well served to work with an agent.
I agree. Again, can real estate agents make money? Yes, you can make money. We don't volunteer and do this out of good deeds.
I think the answer to that one is if they'll work and do the right activities.
Yes.
They can make money. Now, the reality is, back to the previous question a couple questions ago, because you are independently self-employed, you're an independent contractor, which means by default, when you're not an employer-employee relationship, nobody's going to tell you what to do. So the same thing that attracts people to the real estate business is the same thing that causes so many to fail, which is they can do anything they want, including nothing of what will be making them successful. And so as a result, a lot of people don't make it in real estate. The failure rate is very, very high, usually for one of a couple of reasons. The independence allows them to be busy but not really work, and then to focus on things that are fun and exciting but don't actually generate business for them.
Absolutely. So can real estate agents make money? It reminds me, well, if you own a business, you can make money. And like you said, it all depends on how you work it, right? Okay, this one you might find. The next one is, can real estate agents have a criminal record? Wow.
Well, this is one where the states have gotten smart at looking at backgrounds for agents. I mean, it's a large financial transaction, and if you look back, I've been licensed since 1986, so I've been around the business a long time. And this really came to being in about 2003 or 4, when mortgage fraud got to be very, very prevalent. There was, in some cases, a lot of bad apples in real estate. And so the CFPB and the others that got on the financial side for mortgages and mortgage fraud realized that they needed to insist that the states look for people that had records, especially as it pertained to moral standards that had to do with fraud. So if they have a background as a real estate party, and it doesn't matter what they did, like if they're defrauding people, embezzling money, things like that, you, in most states, cannot get a license as a real estate agent. If you had a DWI or something like that, they're still going to put you through a ringer. But in most cases, they'll let you get a license if you've served your, probation or whatever was needed to do that. But what they're really looking for is, fraud, embezzlement, financial transaction issues.
Very well said. The next one kind of goes along with two other ones. Can real estate agents make a lot of money? Well, here's my thoughts, Kevin. What's a lot of money? You and I had this conversation the other day with a very successful real estate agent. To some agents right now, $500 or $1,000 extra a month is a lot of money to them, right?
Right.
So can real estate agents make a lot of money? Well, it all depends on what you consider a lot. And that's what I love about eXp Realty is we all come together, take away the franchise model, and we all come together and share revenue. And that extra income has made a difference in real estate agents' lives.
Yeah, I think this is very, very location specific, meaning if I'm an agent in California, I can make a couple $100,000 a year in terms of my bottom line. And that's not going to be a lot of money if I'm living in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, if I go to Kansas or Texas or a market where it's not nearly as expensive, that's a lot of money. And you can live unless you have a lot of overhead, you can actually live very comfortably on that as compared to markets like the West Coast and the East Coast. So this gets back to, I guess the way I would answer this is you can absolutely make a great living. The nice thing they have going for them in the real estate markets that are expensive is the average price of the homes usually is commensurate with that. In other words, if you look at the San Francisco Bay Area, where I gave the example of making $100,000 or $200,000 and it's not very much money, well, you don't have to sell very many $1 million to $2 million homes, which is where they average in that area, between San Jose and San Francisco, to actually make that money. So what the problem is, and this is a little bit of a different twist on this, is people don't.
Did we lose you,
This
Kevin?
has to do with No, I'm still here. I don't know why.
Oh, yay, you're back.
Yeah, I don't know why my iPad does that occasionally. It decided that it was ringing.
Well, I'm not calling you.
Yeah, no, you weren't. And so the challenge is this, and this has to do with sort of competition in the marketplace. When there's a hot market, you get a lot of real estate agents. You see this with the National Association of Realtors rosters, they skyrocket. And so there's a lot of people and this is why the averages are so low. People will do it as a hobby, right? A friend of the family, a family member, somebody they know from the tennis club says, hey, we're going to buy an investment property. We're going to sell our house. And that agent will do one transaction and they'll help their friend. And if the price point's high enough, they make a decent check on that one transaction. But A, they're not making a lot of money. And B, they're driving the averages down. This is why I don't like the discussion about what's the average agent make based on the number of agents. Because, hot markets and large rosters of agents drive the average down because there's many, many agents, especially in that market that I mentioned, San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I grew up, where the transaction volume between 1 and 3 transactions applies to tens of thousands of agents. I mean, it literally does, because the houses could be $2 million to $5 million a piece. And they make, it's hobby money, but the average agent then in Kansas or Missouri or somewhere like in the Midwest where the prices are 150, 200,000, looks at that, and for them to do that kind of volume, they really have to work at it full time. But their cost of living is lower. So yes, you can make money, but you got to be very focused on what you're doing and have it be specific to your market.
That's fascinating. You said full time. We'll get to there in just a minute because that's one of the questions. But
sure.
So I know we only have about 5 more minutes. So this one I actually laughed, and I don't know. Maybe I lived in Colorado for almost 14 years. As you mentioned, I'm out here in Florida. Can real estate agents smoke weed? That is one of the most popular searches.
Oh, I don't have any personal perspective on this, but certainly there are enough states, Texas is included now, that offer the ability to get medical marijuana. So I don't think that most states have any kind of restriction on the use of it. So I guess the answer would be it depends on your state when you can do this. This tends to be more problematic as it pertains to things that overlap because the federal laws haven't followed suit, right? And because licensing is state specific, the answer would be if your state has no restriction on it that conflicts with the medical marijuana or the recreational laws, like Colorado obviously has both. Nevada has both. California has both. There are a number of states now that have at least gone to medical, and some have also gone to recreational marijuana use. So I have not heard of any state real estate associations that actually have restricted it at this point. I think your clients might not agree with you. In other words, that's probably the bigger issue, right? In other words, if they're in the industry and that's why they're moving to your state, they're probably going to be totally fine with it. But the average client is, especially if they're moving in from out of the area. Let's take Colorado. Let's imagine they're moving in from a nice conservative area like Connecticut or somewhere in the Northeast, where those states are way behind the curve on average. And they're coming to Colorado. If you're the weed smoking real estate agent, and that's a big part of your marketing, you're probably not going to resonate with that client. That's a bigger issue, I think.
Yes. And it's fascinating. I did speak with one real estate agent. He said an attorney once said, somehow the federal laws do come into play with that, even like you said, state specific. Somehow the federal does. So can real estate agents smoke weed? Well, I guess you can. The question is, can you?
Should you?
That's probably what they really meant. And so, I would say check with your own legal advice on that one. I don't smoke weed, so I've never looked that up or really researched it. When I saw this, I just had that. I was laughing. I had a conversation. So, anyhow, okay. So, can real estate be a full-time job? That's the next one. You mentioned that, and yes, it can be full-time. I do know some who do it part-time, and just like anything, you could do part-time, full-time, or over full-time, which I'm not really a fan of that. I like for people to create the perfect day. So, what would you say about that, Kevin? Can real estate be a full-time job?
Absolutely. I think most of the successful agents, whether they started part-time and then grew their business to the point where it could support them full-time, which is pretty frequently happens, right? Somebody has a job and they want to go into real estate, and not everybody can quit that and just start cold turkey and go in. So it's pretty prevalent in most areas that there's a large number of agents that start part-time to work towards full-time. And if you look at, I'll call it the top 20% in most markets, I bet you it's 80 or 90% or more are all full-time. In other words, people that are doing significant volume. It's pretty rare to find somebody in the top 20% in a market that's not working full-time.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with that. So do real estate agents make good money? Well, I think we already kind of addressed,
Sure.
So again, it's all perception. What's good money, right? So what do you consider make good money? Let's see here. Do real estate door hangers work? Ooh, that's a hot one. I am hearing more about that. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
I think that this is in the overall topic of lead generation. And so there is a strategy where you and I have talked about knocking on doors in neighborhoods, and does it work? And in most cases, if you're doing a strategy like that consistently, I would be of the opinion that if you're going to go try and knock on doors, not everybody's going to answer. So leaving a door hanger in complementing your strategy of actually trying to talk to people at the door is a good use of your time. You're already there. If they don't answer to the door, put a door hanger on there. Now, I certainly have never done this myself, and I don't know a lot of agents. Some do this where they'll just walk down the street or hire somebody to, like flyers, right? They just leave the door hanger on everybody's door. And, if you look at, 1 to 4% of people in a given subdivision or area are going to potentially move, sort of hit or miss. And where they work consistently is where people do a mass quantity of them. Meaning if you put enough of them out, somebody's going to potentially call you and say, well, we're not looking to sell, but my sister-in-law wants to move into town and is looking to buy. Do you have anything for sale in our area? Or we're moving to Dallas, we got transferred, and we'd like to talk to you. At some point, it will work, but then it gets into, are you doing it in a large enough volume and consistently to be able to make it work? And this is true for most real estate lead generation strategies. It really is specific to what you're targeting as far as the area, and are you doing enough of it consistently?
Yes. So do real estate door hangers work? Well, yeah, it can work. Is it the highest ROI? Probably not. And my advice would be to have something compelling for them to want to actually connect with you.
Perfect.
Okay. Do real estate agents make money? Do real estate
I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. So do real estate agents make money? Yes, they make money. It's not free. Okay. Do real estate agents go door to door? Yes, you are a master expert at that. So yes, real estate agents go door to door. Not all go door to door. Some go door to door.
Yeah, I think where you'll run into challenges with this, absolutely not everybody does. I mean, the old school days of MLS books, and the only way you could ever get in touch with clients would be to try and talk to them face to face, is sort of gone by the wayside with technology. But that said, it's a great way to get in touch with a large number of people if you're going to be out in an area to knock on doors and have conversations with people. I think where agents struggle with this is they don't know what to say. They're uncomfortable with it, and that being uncomfortable makes the person who answers the door uncomfortable. And then I also think that if you're trying to do this in an area that has, for example, a lot of condo towers or gated communities, the practical reality is you're not going to be able to, if they have a security guard at the gate to protect a large, luxury community, and there's a gate to get in, it will not be very long. I can tell you this from lots of experience, including the agents I've coached, before somebody calls either security or the local law enforcement and says there's somebody wandering door to door in our private secure neighborhood. And in that case, it's not going to work. But as a strategy, it absolutely works.
Yes. And so as we wrap up here, do real estate agents pay taxes? Well, we're supposed to. I mean, I don't know if they actually do. What about forming an LLC? That I found to be very state specific. I have done the research for that one. And then do real estate agents cold call? I don't. Oh, wait, there's two. Do real estate agents cold call? Do real estate agents make cold calls? Yes, some do. I personally don't. And what would you say, Kevin, to add to that?
Right. So I'm gonna hit the tax one, because this is something where, if they're asking the question about do they pay taxes, well, they're expert across the country at earning money because they are independently employed and not paying their taxes. It's a very common problem for agents to not pay their taxes, but you certainly should. And because you are self-employed, if you're listening to this, you should be paying them quarterly based on estimates, so you don't get stuck with a big bill at the end that you can't pay, which is the most common problem you have.
Yes.
And then as far as like LLCs and structure, you're right. It is state specific. It's also brokerage specific. Some brokers will allow you to be paid, like EXP allows you to receive money unless your state restricts it in the form of an LLC or an S corp, and you can receive your commission incomes and income from the company that way. So I think it's dependent on where it is, and frankly, I think agents that do structure that way and are with a broker like EXP treat their business like a business, right? Which you should. Pay your taxes, structure it, know what your expenses are, and know how you're making money.
Yep. And then, okay, one last one. Does real estate farming work? Well, it does. It's not immediate where you just go into a neighborhood and get all this, magical business and unicorns and sparkles everywhere. But it's consistency, minimum of a year, I would say, to really start seeing, and especially after 3 years. I think the biggest challenge with real estate agents on does real estate farming work is that consistency.
Well, my take on this is since about 2005, the turnover rate in general, because of the changes in the mortgage market, in other words, not everybody can get a loan the same way they could before.
Yeah.
So the ability for people to turn over property and move from property to property has gone down. So it's lowered the percentage of people, because it used to be everybody talks about 7% of the population is going to move. The number, if you look at neighborhoods, and certainly if you were thinking about this from a farming standpoint, you should know what the turnover rate is in the area you're targeting. But I agree with you 100%. You should be planning on this as part of your strategy that's long-term. I mean, you could go, for example, like I've done a lot of with for sale by owners or people that previously listed with an agent and it expired and didn't sell. 100% of those people are going to potentially intersect with a agent, right? If they're going to sell, they've already raised their hand, and you're going to get much better results there than farming. And
Yes.
Although I would tell you that if you start farming an area and start having success in your listing and selling properties, your name is going to get out in the neighborhood and they start to complement things. So if you're targeting an area and starting to do transactions there, you start to compress to what Jessica's point is. Maybe it isn't 3 years, maybe it's 18 months or 14 months, because now all of a sudden you've had 10 listings that have sold in that area. And not only have they seen your door hangers and they've seen you come by, or they've seen your signs and other marketing of the listings, you're going to get name recognition. It's like anything else in the business world. You're going to get to be known as somebody who actually works and does transactions in that area.
Absolutely agree. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we're going to come out with some other, probably one more episode with some other pretty deep questions. So thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right.
And keep on wowing people. See you soon.